Hello?
That's a rude cut there, AJ. You gotta do something about that.
It went down. It went down like kind of with the.
No, it just cuts. When I was I told you I was a disc jockey. I was a
I
DJ
do
back
recall.
in the day. Yeah, and so we always try to not have that happen.
Try to fade it out nicely.
Fade it out, yeah. Fade it out. Fade the next one up. Exactly. You were a DJ too, weren't you?
I was a good DJ.
I know, I know, I know. But you
Made my
weren't
way
like
through
you weren't a radio DJ. You were like a party DJ, right?
party DJ, but I did a little college radio.
Did you?
Did a
You were
little,
you're on the air.
we had to do a little college radio.
Where did you go to college?
SUNY Cortland.
Oh, that's right. You told me that.
Yeah, I could pull up pictures if folks want to see.
Portland's pretty nice, but that upstate New York is pretty miserable.
Well, I mean, Syracuse is nicer than Cortland. I mean, as far as
Cortland's kind of in the country though.
the town of Cortland was fantastic.
The town is nice. I like
the town is definitely very nice. But at any rate, it was a very good to see you in person last week on our excursion to Florida.
Yeah, tell everybody. Give them FOMO.
Well, I'm going to ask you, what did you think? How your presentation landed with the folks?
I'm not sure. I know people want answers. That's people that came to see us. I don't know if it's everybody out in that area, but the people came to see us. They wanted answers. I was pleasantly surprised. But then when they heard that there's going to be some work involved, I don't know how well it landed. And that's really important to understand. If you want to feel good, right? If you want to have more energy and you want to have less inflammation, better digestion, more resistant to diseases, nutritional supplementation of any kind is going to make a difference, especially if you've never supplemented before, if you have a really poor diet, or if you're most people. The sicker you are, the more deficient you are, the faster you absorb the nutrients, right? But as far as reversing, when we do these talks and we take questions and, we communicate with the public, it's usually around a frame of, I have this, what do I take? Right? And that's
what do I do? What do I do?
Or what do I do? Okay, what do I do? But more often than not, what do I take? But yes, what do I do too? That's right. The point I'm making is, you don't want to look at health that way. It's not like I got this problem, I do this supplement or this protocol. That's a very unhelpful way of looking at health, because all disease is basically the same thing. It's inflammatory, it's dirty blood, it's nutritional deficiency, it's toxicity, it's low oxygen. It's the base, whether it's muscular dystrophy or acne or heart disease or glaucoma or arthritis. So we got to rethink this frame of taking calls. I got this problem. What do I do? I think that's where, how I'm always like, I repeat myself all the time, and we're not live on Rumble, somebody says. So, I know I repeat myself all the time because the frame of question answer, what do I do? What do I take for this problem? It's not an effective way to communicate the message. You're going to feel better. If you've never supplemented before, you're going to feel better with anything that's nutrient dense, especially the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, which is liquid and nutrient dense. But if you want to reverse a disease, you've got to work on dirty blood. You've got to make sure that you're moving your body. You've got to make sure that you're doing enough fluids and oxygen, and you got to make sure you're on a good, well-rounded nutritional supplement program. And it's true about any health challenge. And that's why I repeat myself over and over again, is because the frame of question answer for a health challenge, for what do I do for a specific health challenge, it doesn't lend itself to effective healthcare or alternative healthcare or nutritional healthcare. It's much simpler than that. It's, what do I do to make my body operate more optimally? That's the appropriate question, and that's going to be true whether you have glaucoma or acne or arthritis or hemorrhoids or vascular dementia or whatever the heck you have. What do I do to make my body operate more optimally? Now, of course, that's going to throw out the question and answer mold, but so be it. That's what we have to do. Are you working on Rumble or something? You look like you're...
No, I'm paying attention to what you're saying. And
what do you think of what I just said? That's a lot of stuff. That's a very important point.
I think
Because
what
it
you're
throws out
saying.
that old mold that we've been using for so long.
I think what you're saying is obviously accurate. Um, but to
But
your initial point about repeating yourself,
yeah,
it kind of reminds me of Dr. Wallach. Uh,
yeah,
he pretty much said the exact same thing most times,
yeah,
maybe not in as of a detailed fashion as you kind of bring things
right,
out. But
right. The same
but
idea. He was like gluten. His thing was gluten.
his thing was gluten. His thing was or is his thing is just deal with the packs as opposed
Yeah,
to
yeah,
uh, the nutrients themselves, because I think he felt like he got burnt by giving too much
yeah.
information.
He used to hate when I did that. He would call me up and he would, I did the Dead Doctors Don't Lie show for many years. Did you know that?
I've heard you on it. I've heard you
Yeah.
on it. Yeah.
When Doc would travel, I would do the
Mhm.
Dead Doc, and he was traveling a lot back in the day, and so I would do it sometimes for like weeks at a time. The Dead
Mm.
Doctors on, but he would call me from the road when I mentioned selenium or something,
Uh-huh.
or zinc, and he was right, because you got to take everything. It's
Mhm.
not just one nutrient. But as a pharmacist, I was kind of trained in like talking about individual nutrients.
Mhm.
Like that's kind of like individual drugs, albeit they're God's drugs, they're nature's drugs, they're divine drugs. But you know, I would focus on specific molecules. And he used to give me a hard time. He would get really mad about, and sometimes I would actually say when I first started, I would tell people to go to the health food store. He hated that. He'd get really mad. I said, go to the health food store. You know, but his point was that people wouldn't know what to do, and they would buy the wrong thing. They wouldn't buy the right package, or they wouldn't buy the right cofactors. They would just buy one thing, and he had a good point, and they wouldn't get the results. So I don't do that anymore. And your point is well taken. That being said, there are certain nutrients within the longevity product line that can be helpful for certain things. For example, I-26. There's nothing like that. I-26 is a very specific, it's not a nutrient, though. It's not a mighty 90 essential nutrient, but it's an effective therapeutic intervention for the real cause of leaky gut. Remember, this is all about leaky gut. And what's the third word after leaky gut when we say leaky gut? Leaky gut,
Syndrome.
bingo. What's a syndrome?
Thing that has many parts to it.
From one thing,
Okay. Yeah.
right? It's
Many
one
effects
thing,
from one source.
exactly. And so that's where cutting the head off the snake comes in. Just slicing the head off, kill the snake. The Gordian knot. You like my story of the Gordian knot?
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Mm-hmm.
Gordian knot. Tell the story of the Gordian knot if people don't know.
Uh,
Or I'll tell it if you don't know. I don't want
well, I remember the story. There was I don't remember the town, but there was a town, and there was
Gordia. It's the
I knew
Gordian
that
knot. Yeah.
Gordia, and then there was a knot on the tree, and there it was told Alexander the Great came through, and they were told, it said, listen, you know, whoever can untie this knot or get rid of
Get
this
rid of the
knot
knot. Yeah.
will be the king
Of Gordia.
of Gordia. And Alexander the Great, instead of conquering them, he's like, okay, took his sword out and just
Yeah.
sliced the knot.
Yeah. Is that a great story? It's a great story. Everyone wants to untie the knot. Oh, the molecular this, and oh, heredity and genetics, and oh, this gene and this protein and this plaque and this and that and the other. No, take the freaking knife and cut the knot. You don't need to know what your mother had or what genetic modality is involved or what cellular structure or all the little minutia that we get all crazy about. I remember one time when I was in pharmacy school, I was doing research at the medical library. They have really cool medical library. Medical libraries are very, very interesting places. And I was in the medical library, and there were three floors in the medical library at the University of Colorado, like just packed with journals and books and all kinds of medical stuff. And I was thinking, with all this know-how, how come we're so sick? With all this knowledge in the medical library, books and journals and articles and this, that, and the other, but we're sicker than ever before because we can't see the forest for the trees. We're all stuck in the minutia of how everything is put together, and we're missing the basics: toxic blood, dirty blood, leaky gut, dysglycemia, SIBO, dysbiosis, lousy food, sedentary lifestyle, poor breathing, high cortisol, body armoring. These are basic ideas. And here's the cool thing about these basic ideas, AJ. You don't need to interact with the medical model. You could do it from the comfort of your own home. You could be your own authority, and that's what this is about. I know I said it before, but it's a really cool story, so I'm going to say it again. I asked Dr. Wallach one time, why did he call the company American Longevity? And he says his two favorite things. He said it's longevity, health, and America. That's what makes America great. The playing field is relatively level. These days it's not so level, but it's relatively level. It used to be more level, but it's relatively level. And we can rise to the top. It's not like you're locked in to your social status or your social class. You can move. If you bring something to the table, it's a meritocracy. If you bring something to the table, you can advance. And that's what's beautiful about America, is you can do this yourself. You can take care of your own health. You can be your own health authority, and we'll help you. You can be your own health authority, whether if you're sick and want to get healthy, or if you're healthy and want to stay healthy, we can help you.
Fantastic message of hope.
Yes.
Pharmacist Ben, I got a call in earlier today where a woman was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy at the age of 5. Has been in a wheelchair since the age of 8 and is now 26.
That's terrible. That's terrible. It's heartbreaking.
And I did speak to her a bit about, keeping the food diary and the gut, etc. And obviously,
yes.
I trove of notes between you and Dr. Wallach on the topic. But what say you about muscular dystrophy?
Say that again. You cut out for a second.
What are your thoughts about muscular dystrophy?
What are my thoughts? Yeah. All right. So first of all, what does muscular dystrophy mean? First of all, there's no such thing as muscular dystrophy. There's 20 or 30 different diseases that are in a class of neuromuscular disease that are called dystrophies. A dystrophy is when things don't grow right. Dys means messed up. Trophy means growth. Dystrophy means things are messed up. The growth is messed up, right? Dystrophic. Make sense so far?
Yes, sir.
Dystrophy is messed up growth. Muscular is muscles. Muscular dystrophy is when your muscles don't grow correctly. When your muscle cells don't divide correctly. Your muscles don't work. And there's many different muscular dystrophies. There's many different neuromuscular diseases, and they all get different names. They don't matter. Name doesn't matter. It's MBFA. It's MBFA. There's toxicity getting into the blood. There's no inflammatory disease without toxicity getting into the blood first. Take that to the bank. There's no degenerative disease. And by the way, we talk about degeneration all the time, degenerative disease all the time. What does that really mean? Under ordinary circumstances, your body regenerates, right? You cut yourself, your skin regenerates. You break a bone, the bone regenerates. Under ordinary circumstances, when tissue is damaged, it regenerates. But if you have a degenerative condition, that means instead of regenerating, you're degenerating. So you can get better, you're getting worse. That's an aberration. The body doesn't get worse. If everything's right, the body gets better, not worse. If you're getting worse, there's a problem. The problem is something is interfering. There's an interference. The interference is compounded by destabilization. The body's an electrical system, and it can become destabilized. The electrical energy can be destabilized. The destabilization of the electrical energy is a function of oxygen, or lack thereof, nutrition, or lack thereof, and toxicity, which leads to inflammation, which leads to more deficiencies and suffocation, or to hypoxia and toxicity, which leads to more inflammation, which leads to more, and on and on and on and on we go. Starvation, suffocation, toxification, inflammation leads to more toxicity, suffocation, starvation. Leads to inflammation, leads to more, leads to blah, 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 blah. It's a vicious circle, downward. It gets worse and worse and worse. That's what degenerative disease is. But that's just kind of the mechanism. But what's the point of it? The point is whether you have muscular dystrophy or arthritis or heart disease or autoimmune problems or endometriosis or whatever, you focus on those areas: nutrition, starvation, oxygenation, hypoxia, detoxification, toxicity, and the inflammation will go down. And where does inflammation, or I should say, where does the enemy get into the body to induce this inflammatory response?
Through the digestive tract.
Through the digestive tract, unless
you're injecting. unless
you're injecting, which is why any medical professional that tells you to inject something into your blood that's not an emergency, that's just in case, should be looked at with great concern. And if you're in a doctor's office, they, we're just going to inject you with this, that, and that's just in case, run. And I know I got in trouble for saying that. I got kicked off of YouTube, and some knuckleheads from Santa Cruz, I won't mention their name, they called me up and they said, what the statistics, and they did studies and blah, 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 blah. I said, you don't put things in your blood, period.
Pharmacist Ben, I was watching a show this morning, and they were railing, what's his name, Kennedy. They were just
going
off on him because of his.
Well, he got, they made him
vaccine.
He got a little ridiculous. Some of his stuff, he got silly. That's the way they do. They make us look silly with people like Kennedy. They make people like us look silly. Oh, he's just a crackpot, or look at it, And Kennedy's, he's not. He doesn't understand what he's talking about. He knows there's a problem. He definitely knows there's a problem. But he's a smart guy. I don't want to say he doesn't know. But a lot of people there's a lot of people. I don't want. Kennedy's a smart guy. I don't mean to march.
I know what you mean.
But there's a lot of people who just know that they're suspicious, but they can't say why they're suspicious, right? Mm-hmm. They don't. It's like, I don't know. Do I really want to inject that just because you tell me to? And then when you say I can't go to work, or I can't travel, or I can't go to the movies, or I can't go to the amusement park, or I can't go to school.
Can't kiss my grandkids.
I can't kiss my grandkids because they're a little suspicious of that, rightly so. But they can't explain why. I'm telling you why. You don't put things into your blood unless it's an emergency. Period. You don't inject things into the blood that are experimental.
What about vitamin C?
Vitamin C is non-toxic. And yeah, I shouldn't say, you don't inject toxic substances into your blood unless it's an emergency. Sometimes you need substances. You're in the hospital, you need substance. You need antibiotics. You need, you may need, you're having a hypertensive crisis. You may need to have an antihypertensive. So there's times you need this stuff, but you have to do it very carefully, very judiciously.
People
to take it as a preventative, just it doesn't seem right to me.
People, are very tentative about giving blood, and just to think about how many blood banks are always talking about, well, we need blood, but let's have a blood drive.
Yeah.
People are very apprehensive about getting a needle in that vein because they don't know what could happen, but really didn't have much of a concern about putting one in. So
right. No, but they did get a coupon for Krispy Kreme donuts.
You know what? You got a Big Mac in New York, and I think you got a bunch of different prizes.
Man, they wanted to inject you. They wanted you injected. That should have been a red flag for anybody. All of a sudden, the government cares about you. Oh, we got to have you healthy. We need you healthy. That's why we're injecting you. Yeah, right.
Pharmacist, but I'm wondering if you can see what I just put on the screen.
Root, not fruit.
Well, do you see the? Do you see what's on the screen?
Nuts, almonds.
You can't see the graphics. Let me see if I maximize it. What about now? Do you see anything on the screen?
Pharmacist Ben's bites, strawberries, spinach, blackberries.
You don't see a graphic that says reversing muscle degeneration?
No, do not see that.
Amazing. Well, I put a graphic that talks about what you kind of just described, and I'm really sorry that you can't see it, but I
Let's
guess I will share it with the
let's
people another time.
let's talk about muscle growth, and building muscle. And there's a lot of things involved in building muscle, but one of the most important is obviously resistance training. Another important thing is protein, and specifically amino acids, building amino acids, but also protein in general. But things like branch chain amino acids, arginine, glycine. Vitamins are a must. Vitamin C is very important for the connective tissue, which is important for the muscle. And then minerals, plant-derived minerals. They're all important for the muscle. Essential fatty acids are very important for the muscle, for muscle development. And also, what else, AJ, for muscle and for the brain, nervous system? Cholesterol.
Oh, okay.
Cholesterol. Making
Didn't
sure you get,
realize cholesterol was important. Well, you
yes.
cholesterol.
And one
Okay.
of the side effects of statin drugs is muscle wasting or muscle disease. Rhabdomyolysis, rhabdomyolysis, they call it.
Mhm.
Rhabdomyolysis is an inflammatory disease of the muscle. And so cholesterol is very important. Now, you don't have to worry too much about eating cholesterol. To get cholesterol, your body will make it. But using vitamin E can protect the cholesterol. So making sure you're protecting your cholesterol is also important. Eggs are great food, but when you heat the eggs, you heat the cholesterol. And that creates an oxidized version of cholesterol, something called oxycholesterol. And cholesterol is not a problem. Cholesterol is not a bad substance. Oxycholesterol, that's a problem. That's a very severe problem, especially for the muscles. So you don't want to you don't want to cook your eggs too much. You want to maybe poach them or soft boil them or raw, ideally.
These substances are so fragile.
Fats are very, very fragile. Absolutely. EFAs are especially fragile. Vitamin E, its role is to protect the fats. It doesn't really, vitamins usually, except for vitamin E, it's an exception, will incorporate themselves into chemical reactions. They support chemical reactions. Vitamin E is kind of unique. Vitamin E kind of stands guard. It protects fats that make up your membranes, your cell membranes. It's important for the brain. It's important for the sperm molecule. Vitamin E actually means the Latin name for vitamin E is tocopherol. Tocopherol. It means to bear children.
Mm.
Tocopherol is a fertility vitamin because it protects sperm. It protects the sperm cells.
Mm.
So vitamin E is a really interesting vitamin. It's protective, and it protects fats. So making sure you're using vitamin E to protect the fats. As you say, fats are very, very, very delicate. Vitamin E has a protective effect against fats. It's not just heat, also light. That's the problem. Seed oils. You've heard about all the issues with seed oils. That's the whole issue with seed oils. Seed oils are fats, and they're very prone towards breakdown. That's why I've never formulated skincare products, by the way, with seed oils. And I can always tell if a skincare company is oblivious to chemistry if they have seed oils in their products, especially almond oil and soy oil and corn oil and macadamia nut oil and fancy schmancy oils. Those are very, very unstable. I step on toes a lot when I say that because people love their omega oils in their skincare products. I'm like, oh, I just use grapeseed oil, and I just use almond oil. That's a whole nother story is skincare. That's really how that's my real passion when it comes to health. I like all biology, but the skin is just so fascinating to me. And vitamin E is one of the best sun protective nutrients you could take. If you want a really good if you really want good sun protection, one of the best ways to protect yourself is
I'm guessing you're going to say vitamin E.
BTT.
Tangy tangerine, really?
BTT, yes, yes, sir. The nutrients in BTT, the carotenes, the flavonoids, the pigments, they'll get stored in your skin. They'll protect your skin from the sun. Also, you know what else? Vision FX and Occutive. Those will all protect your skin from the sun.
Hmm. You always mention, since you're talking about vitamins, whenever you talk about your healing protocol for the gut, you talk about I-26 and collagen peptides and
Fucoid.
FucoidZ, but you also mentioned vitamin A. What is vitamin A's
Vitamin
role?
A is very anti-inflammatory for the intestine. Remember, leaky gut is an inflammatory condition.
Mhm.
And by the way, also, I say by the way a lot. By the way, When you have an inflammation in the intestine that's leading to this leaky gut, dirty blood situation, you're also you're going to be dealing with malnourishment. You're not going to absorb your vitamins and your nutrients. You're going to be starving, functionally starving. You may not know it, but you're going to be weaker and you're going to be toxic as you inflame, as your intestine becomes inflamed. Vitamin A is very, very anti-inflammatory for the gut. So it's really specific. Vitamin A is a incredibly valuable molecule. You know, it's not a vitamin. I mean, let me rephrase that. It's a vitamin because we need it in the diet. You can't make it, but it's more fundamental than an ordinary vitamin. Ordinary vitamins are helpers. Vitamin A is a hormone. It actually makes things happen. The word hormone means I arouse to activity. That's what hormone means. Vitamin A is a hormone and vitamin D, and they work together, vitamin A and D. That's why they have vitamin A in the ointment. Vitamin A acts more fundamentally than an ordinary vitamin, but it still has the quality of a vitamin that you need to get in your diet. And that means many people are deficient in this very, very powerful vitamin. I call it vitamin anabolic because it's a building vitamin. And the more sugar you eat, the more vitamin A you need, and the more vitamin A deficient you tend to be. So it's related. Vitamin A deficiency is related to dysglycemia, blood sugar problems. Second point on the triangle of disease.
Okay, Pharmacist Ben, we got a lot of questions, so I don't want to just go off on that tangent because
let's get some questions.
Let me just deal with the first one. What do you think about the use of a hyperbaric chamber?
They're awesome, absolutely awesome. I love them
because you talk about the so you think that a weekly visit to some sort of specialist that has a hyperbaric chamber is helpful?
Right. Absolutely. They are awesome. And they're important. That's awesome. They're important. Yeah, I'm a big fan. They call it HBOT, hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Yes, yes, sir.
Awesome.
Okay,
awesome.
well, since we're on the topic of oxygen, I had a question, and I don't know if Becca's still on, but this has to do with the different waters that have different properties. We have the Kangen type water, which is higher pH water, and we have this other water that adds another hydrogen molecule to the water.
What kind of water? What kind of water? You talking about deuterium? What kind of water? Heavy water?
Heavy water. I can't think of the brand names of the different, but there's an echo device that let me just see what they call it. And it is advanced hydrogen tech delivers.
You're talking about hydrogen water.
Yeah.
Molecular hydrogen water.
Let's see under the science. It says hydrogen may be the smallest element in the universe, but its antioxidant power in your body is massive.
Massive. It's the most important. It's the most powerful antioxidant. It's very, very helpful. Hydrogen is, yes.
But in regular drinking water, hydrogen is bound to oxygen as H2O.
And hang on. Creating a looseness between the H and the O. H2O is like Mickey Mouse. H2, it's two hydrogens, right? H2O. So you have O right here, oxygen, and you have two H's on the side, like Mickey Mouse ears, right? You with me?
Yes.
So if you can make this H loose, you'll have more benefits from the hydrogen. That H will be less tightly bound to the Mickey Mouse. If Mickey Mouse, you got two ears. We want to loosen that ear so that hydrogen becomes more available. You with me?
Yes. I'm listening.
Okay. Minerals, ions in water create a magnetic pull that separates the oxygen away from the hydrogen, so the hydrogen becomes loose.
Mm-hmm.
Minerals are one of the best ways to make your water, the hydrogen in your water more available. That's one of the benefits of minerals in the interstitial or the liquid part of the body. That's one of the advantages of plant-derived minerals, not the colloidal minerals, but the ionic minerals. Ionic minerals create they have a loosening effect on the hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
You look lost there.
Well, because you just said not the colloidal minerals.
Yeah, the ionic minerals. Colloidal minerals are a little different. And, the colloidal minerals might have that effect too, actually, but definitely the ionic minerals do.
Okay, fulvic versus
fulvic or ions.
Okay.
Actually, fulvic's everything, but mostly the ions. Fulvic is the water soluble portion of the humus, the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
There's humus and there's fulvic. Humus contains everything. Fulvic is the water soluble part. The water soluble part is mostly the ions. Colloidal minerals are not water soluble. They're water suspend. They suspend. They don't dissolve.
Okay, so explain then why someone may purport miraculous results from drinking highly alkaline water.
Well,
why might they report these types of
you can't
results?
go by what people report ever. That's called anecdotal evidence in science, and people have all kinds of things. First of all, people are very complicated. They got all kinds of stuff going on in their lives. How do you know it wasn't that they stopped eating or they took a day off from sugar? There's no way of knowing. So you can't really go by what people say. That's the problem with epidemiology. Are you familiar with epidemiology? That's where they go out, like the China study. Remember we talked about the China study a couple weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
And they drew these conclusions by asking people questions. Epidemiology is when you go around and ask people questions. Well, people are complicated. They don't know exactly what they ate. They don't know when they ate them. They don't know what they ate with. I don't really go by what people say. But nonetheless, how do you explain these kinds of results from you asked for minerals? Is that what you asked from?
Well, I asked about
or water, alkaline water.
Electrically charged
so
water to make the alkalinity a lot higher.
Yes, that's the Kangen water.
Yeah.
The Kangen water. That's what the Kangen water does. The alkalinity of the water is not the point. When you drink water, it goes into your stomach. It becomes acidic. So alkalinity water, people don't understand science. They talk about
We've had this conversation before, by the way.
It doesn't stay alkaline. It's in your stomach. Your stomach has hydrochloric acid in it. It's not going to stay alkaline. However, alkalinity implies electrons. Something is alkaline when it has an excess of electrical energy. Those electrons, those can get through. Some of them, anyway. And so when you're drinking Kangen water, you're drinking electricity, pieces of electricity. Or when you're drinking alkaline water. It's not that the water is alkaline that's the issue. It's not the pH of the water. It's the electrons that are making the water alkaline. And Kangen water is very electron rich. They create electrons electrically, literally, by electrifying the water.
And you're correct. And what might these electrons do in one's body?
Are you joking? Your body runs on these things. Your body runs on them. Or you just want me to say?
Well,
your body, runs. That's how your body runs. Your body runs on electrons. It's like putting gas in your car.
And,
let me hang on a quick second. I'm sorry to interrupt you. The mighty 90 essential nutrients carry the electrons. The electrons are just electrons. They're free. They're floating. They can't really go into chemistry. The mighty 90 essential nutrients carry the electrons into chemistry. You understand what I'm saying? They're carriers.
100%.
That's why the mighty 90 is so important. They carry the electrical energy. So the electrical energy is provided from many sources. Good food, quality food, crappy food, processed food is electron deficient. Quality food gives you electrons. Earthing, walking barefoot on the earth or in sand, you get quality electrons to your feet, to the bottom of your feet. Being in nature, being by the ocean's a big electron sink. what other good ways of generating electrons? Negative ion generators. You can actually buy them at Home Depot, a negative ion generator. In Japan, they tell you to go lay out in the forest with negative ions when you're depressed. They call it Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing. So these electrons run the body. And one of the issues with our foods, our nutritionally deficient foods and our processed foods, is they're electron deficient, and they're deficient in the substances that carry the electrons. We are electrical beings primarily. And by the way, my skincare products work because of this very reason, by facilitating the movement of electrical energy, by facilitating the movement of electrons.
Okay. All right, I'm just going to leave that because I can't remember the follow-up I had.
Let's take some questions from
the
people.
I got a bunch of questions that came in. I just want to make sure that I address all the ones that came in prior. Lymphatic system, oxygen, and muscular dystrophy. So lymphatic system. Why are we swelling? Why are we swelling? And why when we swell, did the dry brushing and the soaking of the feet reduce the swelling so much?
Well, what is the lymphatic system?
The lymphatic system carries waste out of the body.
So waste. It unfortunately also carries nutrients and hormones and waste. It's kind of a big, I don't know God's reason or nature's reason for having the same system carry wastes and also carry hormones and vitamins and other essential substances, but that's what happens. So the lymphatic system is vast. There's 100,000 miles of lymphatic vessels. If you took all the lymphatic vessels out of your body, it would go around the earth 4 times in one body. I mean, it's just this vast, vast system, mostly microscopic. And over time, let me say this, the lymphatic system runs parallel to the blood system. They're both considered to be the circulatory system together. But the lymphatic system runs parallel to the blood part of the circulatory system. You gotta nod your head if you understand.
I'm with you.
Okay, good.
The hat must be fooling you.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not a red hat.
This is a longevity hat, by the way.
Oh, that's good.
I'm a winner.
Okay. So, as the blood circulates and comes to the tiny little capillaries, the fluid will actually leak out into a space. At the very end of the capillaries, the fluids, the water and the nutrients and the toxins and the substances, they leak out into a space. Are you with me?
Yes.
And then from that space, they go into the lymph. The lymph carries the stuff that leaks out of the blood vessels.
Okay.
Now some of that stuff will go to feed cells, but the other stuff gets leaked into the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system goes around and around. If you have toxins getting into the lymphatic system, either from the blood or from the mouth, the source of the lymphatic river, the mouth of the river, you think the lymphatic system is the river, which is, guess where? The intestine. The lymph will become sluggish and it will move appropriately. It'll clog. And that means fluids don't move. They'll start to leak out. That's called lymphedema.
Small intestine leads to the lymphatic system. There's
openings in the small intestine. Mm-hmm. They call them Peyer's patches. Mm-hmm. You've heard that term. That are openings to the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system carries fats. It carries fatty vitamins, essential fatty acids, fatty nutrients from plants, and toxins, and fatty toxins from the digestive system, the Peyer's patches, into the lymphatic system. So you got stuff coming in this way, and you also have stuff leaking into the lymphatic system from the capillaries. But over time, that lymph can become clogged, and the vessels themselves are made of connective tissue, and that can break down. And then all of a sudden, stuff leaks out. It drops down. And that's called lymphedema. And it doesn't have to be full-blown lymphedema where you see swelling in your feet. That could be really bad. It could just be lymph that's pouring out into the tissue, causes swelling of the tissue. It could be one of the ways that we get arthritis and we get all kinds of inflammatory diseases. It could cause eye diseases, especially eye diseases, because the lymphatic vessels are very tiny in the eyes. In the face, you have lots of lymph in the face and in the head and in the sides here. When you break out in all of these areas, those are lymphatic issues. People break out along the sides. Sometimes people break out in their décolleté area, women in the front of their chest. It's all lymph. And by the way, the lymph, this is how it works. Your lymph, forget the blood part. The lymph goes through the lymphatic system, starts in the intestine, and then it circulates around. And the fats don't go into the blood. They go into the lymph. But as the lymph is circulating, it comes to the blood right in the front of the chest, and it dumps into the blood right there. And this is why a lot of times people will break out in this area, and this is why lymphatic massage, dry brushing, what you're saying, should always be done towards this area. Not this way, but this way, towards this area here, to improve the movement of lymph into the blood. It's a very cool setup, but because we don't really understand as we understand, but the public, most people don't understand how this whole thing works. We get very confused when all of a sudden we break out here, or we break out in the back, or we have lymphedema, or lymphoma. Lymphoma is cancer of the lymph. And that also is caused by excess toxicity in the lymph. I had unfortunately, one of my employees, she got diagnosed with melanoma in her arm, and they took out the melanoma, but they also took out a bunch of lymph. This is how metastases occur, is through the lymph. So when you have cancer, they'll take out the lymph nodes so that you don't get the cancer cells into the lymphatic system.
Okay. You keep doing this, Pharmacist Ben. You keep doing this.
What's that?
You're what's the word? Educing more questions because of your explanations. Just
that's not.
Don't be so smart. You gotta. Okay. Anyway, but here's a serious question. The blood apparently regenerates. Kind of. We get new blood over time.
Yeah. Oh,
Do we get new lymph?
Well, remember, what is blood? You mean blood cells.
Blood cells. So the old blood cells
circulate. They live about 90 days, I think. 3-4 months, something like that.
What about lymphatic cells?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing. Say that again.
What about lymphatic cells?
Lymph cells probably fast. They probably have a shorter. I don't know exactly how long the lymph cells. They're white blood cells, lymph cells, lymphocytes. I don't know how. I think they probably have shorter lifespan than red blood cells. Lymphocytes. You're looking confused. Cyte means cells. Lymph means lymph. White blood cells, neutrophils, and what do they call them? T killer cells, etc. There's all these different various cells of the immune system called lymphocytes.
Okay, so the lymphatic system carries immune.
It's immune. The tonsils, the spleen, the thymus, maybe. There's all these concentrations of lymph, the Peyer's patches in the intestine. There's concentrations of lymph, large concentrations of lymph cells that kind of act like filters, massive filters for the lymph. That's why the tonsils get inflamed. That's why tonsillitis is such a common thing for kids, because their lymph tends to be congested. Why do you think? I'll tell you why in a second. Kids tend to have lots of lymphatic congestion that tends to accumulate in the tonsils. These are areas of lymph. Here you got, I think you have 4 different adenoids and tonsils and such, and they get inflamed, and they take them out, which is not very smart because you need to have these areas. These are all filters. Why are they clogged? Why is your filter clogged? Because your lymph is dirty. Your lymph is congested. Why does that happen in kids? Well, what do kids love to drink?
Sugar?
Milk.
Yeah,
fats. It's a milk. Probably processed fats play a role in this. Tonsillitis is a classic example of lymphatic disease or lymphatic congestion. And so the medical strategy is, let's take out the filter. The filter's clogged, so let's remove it. Right? That's how we operate. That's how we work.
Okay, we got.
In fairness, if the tonsils are inflamed, it could be a problem. So that, that's why they take it out. But parents, let's keep your kids from getting tonsillitis in the first place by having it clean.
Okay, speaking of our extremities swelling, what about berry? Is that
We talk about that every time, Barry. You just like saying
we
that.
do. I like saying berry. I
I
love
know.
berries.
I know. I
can
can tell. I can tell you like saying that.
I actually told my dad about berry earlier today.
Yeah, you did. Did he like it? Did he get it?
You know what? I may have had a breakthrough.
Okay.
So at any rate,
you can have subclinical berry. That's just when you don't feel like doing anything, or your body doesn't feel like doing anything. Constipation is GI berry.
Mm.
Heart disease may be berry. Certainly, thiamine deficiency is plays a part in it. I've told this before, but I'll just say it again. You can have neurological berry that's so significant that it makes you hallucinate.
Mm.
When they find an alcoholic drinking beer out of a paper bag, talking to pink elephants and little leprechauns, he's hallucinating, he's delusional. They'll put thiamine, vitamin B1, right in the guy's blood, and his delusions go away. Thiamine is vitamin B1, which is the deficiency that causes berry. And a little bit of thiamine is all you need not to have berry. And that thiamine, vitamin B1, was the first vitamin to be discovered. And it was discovered when it was noticed that giving thiamine cured peripheral neuropathy. It was noticed that peripheral neuropathies were thiamine deficiencies. And thiamine is used by the body to process sugar and to process alcohol. So alcoholics and diabetics, or people who have dysglycemia, are very prone towards thiamine deficiency. And by extension, berry.
Okay, so now when they say you have water accumulating on the lungs or the chest, and that's a congestive heart failure sort of thing.
When the blood doesn't circulate appropriately, fluids start to leak. The movement of blood assures that the fluids will all be locked up and circulate without leakage. Once the movement of fluids slows down, the water can leak out. That's what I talk about blobification.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the ways we blobify, is fluids leak out. And that's secondary to or following poor circulation. So congestive heart failure oftentimes will cause edemas, or like you say, water on the lung, or fluid accumulation. Congestive heart failure. And congestive heart failure, when the fluids don't move around, the blood is more prone towards clotting. And that's why they give you blood thinners. Blood clotting will kill you. Blood thinners will kill you too, but blood clotting will kill you. Blood clotting is considered more of a pathology than blood thinners. Blood thinners. It's interesting how the remedy for the treatment for blood clotting will kill you, and the blood clotting will kill you too.
My client's dad passed away today. He was, and the client said that all these years of warfarin probably didn't help him at all.
Didn't help him. I'm sure it didn't help him.
Okay, Kathleen is writing in, and by the way,
say that again.
Kathleen is writing in, and she's 72, waiting since 2023 for a total hip replacement, osteoporosis, and then slipped, wooden floor, fell, fractured a femur, dislocated. The question is about these open wounds on each of my feet. There've been a 3 wound care, seen a Sinai. They all say they're not sure what's caused it, and doctors have been scraping, and I finally stopped and went on my own and tried to heal them. They gave me flesh-eating ointment to be on my way, and I had a setback, no medication. I've only taken a leave. Can you please help me? No longer want to go on like this.
First, of course not. You're young. First of all, 72 is young. But 30 years of good living, you do it right. This is a classic case of MBFA disease. Classic case. There's many things going wrong, but it all starts off with dirty blood. Osteoporosis tells us that the blood is dirty and acidic, and the calcium is leaking out of the bones to neutralize the blood a little bit. It could also have to do with nutrient deficiencies. Guaranteed, she hasn't mentioned it, but guaranteed she has an intestinal issue. Guaranteed she's got a malabsorption issue. Guaranteed she's got a diabetic issue, blood sugar issue. Dysglycemia is notorious for causing wounds that don't heal, especially wounds in the feet or the extremities that don't heal. So her body is screaming triangle of disease, screaming MBFA. So there's a lot of things you have to do. You didn't get to this, you're 72. You didn't get to this pickle overnight. You took you 72 years to get here, and you're not going to completely reverse it right away, but you could begin to reverse it today. Where does it start, AJ? Where would you start to reverse?
I would fix the digestion.
Absolutely, 100%. As long as you have a leaky gut, I love how you took this on. I heard you just talking about this. You got a leak in your boat.
Right? Oh, you like that?
I love that. I love that because it's so clear. It's such a powerful metaphor.
I learned from the best.
As long as you have a leaky gut, you got a leak in your boat. You got to patch that up, and you got to do more than patch it up. But the first thing is you got to patch it up. Leaky gut is a leak in your boat. So all the things to patch up leaky gut, change the way you eat. Now, I will say, Kathleen, that it's not your typical 72-year-old that wants to make all these changes, but your body is breaking down so significantly that you're going to be in a world of hurt if you don't start making some changes. If you want to start simply, get the plant-derived minerals. If you want a little more, get the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. If you want to go all out, get the Healthy Start Pack. If you want to really do it right, do a food diary and patch up that leaky gut. And that's going to mean eliminating foods. And we can help you do all that. We have a food diary of critical health news. You can grab that. Call AJ, or we can do a three-way with myself. We can definitely help you, and we can help you. The good news is you can help quickly. But it's going to be a little bit of work because, like I say, you didn't get to this pickle overnight, and it's going to take you maybe 6 months to completely turn the whole thing around, but you can start right away. And I encourage you to do that.
You're the man, Ben, for that. Nita, my daughter's first three, okay, I mean, she says a lot of glowing things about you, first and foremost. My daughter's, Nita.
Oh, Nita.
My daughter's first three kids, boys, were all born with pectus excavatum, which is sunken or funnel chest, congenital chest wall deformity, where the breastbone grows inward, creating a depression, often due to abnormal cartilage growth.
Yeah.
Her fourth, a girl, doesn't seem that she has it, but I'm not sure if one may be developing. My two questions are, is this preventable or truly genetic? His father has it. Is there anything that can be done? These kids now, they're 5, 3, 1, and the girl is 4.
Yeah. So a couple things. First of all, the word genetic is often used to define hereditary. There's a difference between hereditary and genetic. Everything is genetic. You can't wiggle your finger without being genetic. Everything is genetic. Everything. Hereditary is different. People lump those two terms, they conflate those two ideas. So when you say, oh, I have diabetes or pectus excavatum because my mother had it or my father had it, you're talking heredity. That's not true. Genetic, though, that's true. So when a baby is born with, pectus excavatum or muscular dystrophy or whatever they're born with, that's because in the womb, the genes were not being supported. You follow me?
Yes.
The DNA is made up of genes, and all of that is subject to inflammatory damage. And if there's not enough nutrients to build the genes. So yes, babies are born with diseases, but it's not because your mother had it or your father had it. It's because in the womb, the baby wasn't formed. The DNA, the genetics weren't being formed correctly. So it's not hereditary, but yes, it's genetic. So what do? Well, there's lots you can try, and that is treat your kids like they have arthritis. Build the cartilage, healthy bone and joint path. But make absolutely sure the kids are not eating what kids usually eat. It's hard when you have kids and they're in the culture. I think some of those kids are young. It's not going to be that bad. But you can't feed the kids what you ordinarily feed kids. Not you, but what we ordinarily feed kids. That means applesauce and baby food and popsicles and the foods normal kids eat is going to make the problem worse. So you want to go all out with healthy bone and joint pack, more protein, more good fats, stay away from sugar. Really, it's going to be hard for the kids, but yes, that's what I would be doing. Yes, you can be born with it. It's not hereditary, but yes, it involves genetics. Everything involves genetics.
Pharmacist Ben, what do you think about NAD plus?
What do I think about it? What do you mean? What do I think about it?
There's a woman who has an NAD product. She wants to know what your
NAD products are just silly. Niacin, which is what builds NAD, vitamin B3, is incredibly important. NAD, and NADP are forms of niacin, of vitamin B3, and they're very important. NAD and NADP are incredibly important for the production of energy, but supplementing with NAD and supplementing with NAD, I'm not going there. I don't know if that's going to be that helpful. Maybe IV, if you did IV NAD or something like that, but the supplements you see out there, NAD plus, they're not going to change your life, particularly if you're malnourished or you've got leaky gut or dysglycemia. It's not going to change it. Don't waste your money. Work on the basics first. Root, not fruit.
And by the way, on rootnotfruit.com, you see some different sections where Pharmacist Ben has over time told us how to do repair of the gut, repair of the skyscraper or the connective tissue structure. And so review it. If you are a longevity member already, you can use that as your guide. If you're not, you can just hit the shop now button, and we'll be glad to help you. But if someone introduced you to the show, get back with them and find out. Maybe they're one of us. Maybe they can help you navigate your health challenge. What nutrients are needed to convert 2 ATP glycolysis into full 34 ATP oxidative phosphorylation?
Oh, somebody's asking. Some got chemist in there. Asking some fancy questions. That's what we talked about that I think a couple weeks ago. That's all that happens to the mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the mitochondria does. So the mitochondria, you have energy is produced in the cells outside the mitochondria and then inside the mitochondria. If you have a mitochondrial issue, you're not going to be able to go to the second step, and that's one of the problems with cancer. Like cancer cells are divide all the time is because they can't go 34. They can't produce 34 ATP. I don't want to get too much chemistry, because not everybody's going to understand it. But this is all the stuff that the mitochondria does. For whoever asked that question. So mitochondria: NAD, NADP, niacin, alpha lipoic acid, melatonin, vitamin A, vitamin C, minerals, vitamin E, vitamin K.
So just feed your cells the 90.
Yes, and stay away from sugar because that burns out the mitochondria. Support the mitochondria.
Okay, and then what about this allithamine?
Say again?
It says, I think this says allithamine, better absorbed.
Spell it for me.
It's on the bottom of the screen, ALLITH.
Oh, allithiamine.
Allithiamine. Wow.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. Allithiamine, it's not bad. It's a little expensive, but it's not bad. The alli means garlic, and they first discovered allithiamine in garlic. I use benfotiamine, but allithiamine's not bad. It's pretty. The advantage of allithiamine is because it's fat soluble. It can enter into cells, and it's very bioavailable. It's a good source. Thiamine, plain thiamine is there's nothing wrong with plain thiamine, but fat soluble thiamine, whether it's allithiamine or benfotiamine, they can penetrate into cells more effectively, and they can get into the blood cell, into the cells, brain cells, neural cells, more effectively than regular thiamine. But thiamine is plenty absorbable. The body has mechanisms for using thiamine. Nonetheless, Allethiamine is great. Benfotiamine is great. I use benfotiamine too.
Our buddy Texas Hill says suicidal thoughts. What's wrong? Is it a lithium deficiency?
No, it's that life sucks.
So what do we say? What do we say to our good friend Texas Hill, who's always participating? Is there anything that we can say? And by the way,
first of all,
our phone number is 855-949-3377. Give us a call. We can talk. You don't have to be alone. Second, Pharmacist Ben.
Okay, so he said suicidal thoughts, but he didn't say depression. That's different. Now, suicidal thoughts, if you're not depressed, that could be a nutrient deficiency or drugs. There's some drugs that do that.
Could Corona make that happen?
The vaccine could do it. And the virus could do it. Yeah, but here's the thing.
I mean Corona the beer.
Oh, Corona the beer. Here's the thing. Life is hard. People have post-traumatic stress. There's childhood adverse experiences. They call it the ACEs study, or ACEs, adverse childhood experience. There's all that. So, I'm always a little bit reticent to blame suicidal thoughts on nutrition or physiology. That being said, there's more connections coming from your body to your brain than your brain to your body. So, yeah, there's things that you can do to your body for better or worse that's going to affect your brain. So first, I would want to assess what this person's life is like, and I wouldn't even do it. I would just ask the person to do it. Are you depressed about something? Something going on in your life? That's not a nutritional deficiency. Can nutritional deficiencies cause suicidal thoughts? Yes, absolutely. But I would want to ask a lot more questions, and I'm a little bit careful about blaming emotional and psychological and mental issues strictly on nutrition, just because life is hard, and it's understandable that you'd have suicidal thoughts sometimes. And this person didn't say they're depressed. So if this person is ordinarily happy, but all of a sudden they have suicidal thoughts here and there, it could be a nutritional deficiency. It could also be something called the imp of the perverse. Have you heard of this? The imp of the perverse.
No, what's that?
When I was a kid, I had this urge to jump off a building or to jump out of my window. I just had this urge to do it. I remember when I was like 10 years old, we were going to go to Shea Stadium. My dad was going to take us to Shea Stadium. And I was terrified that I would want to jump from like the seats to the field. And I couldn't understand why it was. And then I read this thing called the imp of the perverse. And maybe you can recognize this. The imp of the perverse is when you have this urge to do this crazy thing that you would never do otherwise, that you would never dream. I didn't want to jump off a building. I just had this urge to do it, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Sometimes people have the urge to just slap somebody, but they're not going to do it. It's just an urge. That's just something that's coming out of your brain that you would ordinarily filter out, but you're noticing it before it gets filtered out. You're not going to do it. I was going to jump off a building, but I had this urge to do it, and that's just me noticing stuff going through my brain. What's that telling us? Stuff goes through your brain all the time. Even jumping off a building, even slapping somebody, even kissing somebody. There's all these things that just go through our brain. It doesn't mean you do them. It doesn't mean you act on them. And that's one of the problems we have in life. We identify with our thoughts. We don't treat our thoughts as random neural flux, as just electrical energy flowing in your brain. We think it means something. Think about it. Check. Isn't this true, AJ? Tonight, you're going to go to bed. You're going to think about your whatever, your bills, your business, your relationships, something you said or something somebody said to you. And then you're going to go, oh, shit, they said that. Or, oh, shit, oh, crap, I said that. Oh, crap.
It's late, don't worry.
Right. Oh, shit, you said that. Oh, shit, I said it. You identify with it on some level. Why did I say that? Why did he say that? And you're going to go down a rabbit hole. When in reality, it was just some random energy floating in your head somewhere. And that's what sometimes suicidal thoughts are. That's what my imp of the perverse experience were. They're just random things going through your head. The problem is when we identify with them. And I always tell the story because I always think about it. There was a beautiful girl I worked with, and she, she had a bad day, whatever. And she went into a gun store and bought a gun and went into her beautiful new BMW that she loved so much, and she blew her brains out. Why? Because some freaking voice in her head told her to do it. You know, it's like we have these voices, these sounds, these electrical energy in our heads that tell us to have, like this guy saying, suicidal thoughts or whatever. It tells you to go kiss somebody or pinch their butt or whatever it tells you, or you can't sleep at night because you're thinking about this, that, and the other. It could just be random stuff. You know, our brain and our mind, whatever it is that's thinking, which is a whole nother story, it's designed to problem solve, to be creative, to plan your day, to decide what you want to do, not to go round and round about, oh, my life sucks, oh, I'm going to commit suicide, oh.
Focusing on the wrong stuff.
It's not that we're focusing, we're
identifying. Let the idea fleet is what you're saying.
We're identifying. It's not focusing, it's identifying, believing it, believing this noise in your head. So a suicidal ideation or suicidal thought, which can be associated with certain drugs for sure, is just believing or identifying with a voice in your head, with a thought. A thought is a voice. A thought is a voice in your head, right? Right now, is there a voice in your head? Your voice in your head saying, what the heck? That's the funny thing about the voice is when you try to find it, it's hard to find. But when you, it's like it goes away when you look for it. But when you're not paying attention, there's all the sounds. What's Ben talking about? Is he crazy? Why is he saying this? Oh, he said this yesterday. Oh, I don't understand.
Never.
Okay, but I mean, there's other people.
But but Pharmacist Ben, I got a confession to make. You know what has popped in my mind a couple times when we were in Florida, we kept passing this place called FucoidZ, which is like some Brazilian
all-you-can-eat meat. I've been there.
Okay, wait a minute. So in New York, there's a place similar, and when I was in my 20s, this super gorgeous girl from Brazil wanted to go to the restaurant. So I took her to the restaurant, and I looked at the cost of the thing, and I was like, "Whoa!" Well, no, not that I you know,
it was like $50 or $60 for
whatever it was. It was more than I expected.
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, that's okay. I'll just have vegetables."
Okay.
Why did my dumb ass get her the vegetables? She never talked to me again. Like she wanted
to go get. Well, okay, I get it, but what's that got to do with what we're talking about here?
This is a thought that pops.
Every time you pass by FucoidZ,
this 30 years later,
it just randomly comes in your head,
and I go, damn.
Yeah. I was just like
every single time.
Well, no, two things can happen. One is you can go damn, and it could be embarrassment, regret, shame, whatever it is. But another thing could be like, there is just this electrical energy. Because what is a thought actually in your brain? It's potassium and sodium going in and out of a neuron. That's all it is. Potassium and sodium. You're getting freaked out about potassium and sodium, basically. And that's how we want to look at these things, unless we're trying to achieve something. Like if you're trying to problem solve, or you're trying to figure out how to get to New York from Florida or whatever. You know, you're trying to do something, accomplish something. That's what thoughts are for. Other than that, these random things that go in your head, that's just the end result of flux, of ions, charged particles going in and out of neurons. That's all. That's all that whole FucoidZ thing is. So if you can reduce that whole experience in your head down to potassium and sodium flux, that'll change the entire perspective. Right?
Could have been. You know, I don't know. This is a reference no one who's watching this will get, including you. Yeah. This movie by Eddie Murphy called Pluto Nash.
And never heard of it.
Oh, actually, it wasn't Pluto Nash. It was another one that he did with Steve Martin. I forget. It's Bowfinger. It's called.
Okay.
And in Bowfinger, Eddie Murphy, one of the characters he plays, was obsessed with the Laker girls. Okay. And his thoughts would go in his head.
Okay.
Girls, I gotta go see the Laker. Yeah. It was pretty funny. See the movie.
All right.
You get it. Pharmacist Ben, there's so much more in the chat that people are saying, but I appreciate you going overtime with us.
Yes, sir.
And you know, Pharmacist Ben, you're a giving man. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Praise God.
is there any parting words that you want to say
Yes.
to the folks?
Parting words is we can do this. We can all do. We'll help you. AJ and I and Rebecca and Ruth Ellen, everybody, well, the longevity team. We're set up to help you. But if you're sick now and you're in your 70s, like that gal we were talking to, and things aren't going well, and you got these health challenges, health issues, we can help you. And at the same time, if you are healthy, please take it seriously. First of all, be grateful, thankful, but make sure you maintain it. You don't want to go downhill. I'm 66, man. I'm telling you, it goes fast. You only get a couple of bites at the apple here, people. When you're in your 60s and 50s and you're healthy, that's the time to just make sure you go into your old age, not even just not sick, but just not falling apart. You don't want to have to worry about falling. You don't want to not be able to go up the stairs. You don't want to not be able to carry your groceries from the car to the house. You don't want to not be able to get off of a position on the floor to standing up. You don't want to not be able to hold your grandkids. I mean, even if you're healthy, when you're in 50s or 60s, please take it seriously. Anybody can do this. We can help you. And if you want to make some money, sign up and join. Be a distributor. Sign up and join us.
Absolutely, Pharmacist Ben. And just the very last thing that I want to share with you on the way out is my new favorite song.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to The Explainer. This is where we take really big, sometimes complicated ideas and, well, we break them down into frameworks you can actually use. So today, we're going to unpack something really interesting. It's Pharmacist Ben Fuchs' whole philosophy on why we get sick, and more importantly, his unified strategy for health. We're going to start with a frustration I think a lot of us share, then we'll travel upstream to what he says are the real root causes, and finally, we'll look at his big picture solution. All right, let's dive right in. And we're going to start with a feeling that, well, it's something a lot of us know all too well. It's that feeling of being caught in a frustrating cycle, especially if you're dealing with a chronic health issue. You know the drill, right? You're bouncing from one specialist to the next, just trying to get some answers. I mean, it seems like the logical thing to do, doesn't it? You've got an issue with a specific part of your body, so you go see the doctor who specializes in exactly that part. But here's where pharmacist Ben Fuchs throws a wrench in the works. He asks a really critical question. What if this super-focused approach, this laser focus, is actually making us miss the bigger picture entirely? So, an eye problem? Off you go to the ophthalmologist. A heart issue, and bam, you're seeing a cardiologist. And, a skin thing pops up, so it's a visit to the dermatologist. And look, each of these experts is doing their job, right? They're diligently tackling their one specific piece of the puzzle. But here's the kicker. According to Fuchs, this whole fragmented approach, it completely misses the point. He argues that all of these separate, diverse symptoms, from your kidneys to your skin to whatever else, they aren't separate problems at all. They're just different branches on the same dying tree. They're all signs of one single systemic issue that he, pretty bluntly, calls MBFA disease, or my body is falling apart disease. Okay, so if chasing down each individual symptom isn't the answer, then what is? Well, this is where Fuchs says we need to adopt a totally new first principle. And this right here, this is his core idea. He says, where you see the problem is not where the problem begins. The symptom you're looking at is just a signal. The real cause, that's located upstream. So what does he actually mean by going upstream? Well, it's pretty simple, really. It means you have to trace that symptom, whatever it is, all the way back to its true origin. And Fuchs argues that this journey, it almost always leads you back to the body's main operating systems, your digestion and your metabolism. But he's really clear on one point. The digestive system, it's not just another part to look at. He says it is the root system. It's the soil that your entire health grows out of. Okay, so let's actually follow that stream, right? Let's go upstream. The first major system we hit is the blood. And according to Fuchs, the blood can become, well, a literal highway for toxicity. His claim is this: all disease is cell disease. It all starts at the cellular level. And why do cells get sick? Because of what the blood delivers to them. Or, just as important, what it fails to deliver. So Fuchs points a finger at two main culprits that make our blood dirty, as he calls it. First up, you've got a compromised gut. You've probably heard the term leaky gut, and that's when stuff that's supposed to stay in your digestive system leaks out into your bloodstream. Not good. And the second big one? High blood sugar. He says sugar acts like a toxin that literally makes your blood thick and sludgy, and that sludgy blood is a major driver of inflammation all over the body. And this is where a really dangerous chain reaction kicks off. This toxic, sludgy blood, it just can't do its job right. It can't deliver oxygen and nutrients the way it's supposed to. So what happens? Your organs start to get starved, and at the same time, they're getting poisoned. And that just leads to this massive cascade of problems everywhere in the body. This brings us to a really powerful analogy he uses. Fuchs calls our circulatory system the railroad of toxicity. Just picture it. This dirty, sludgy blood is like a train chugging through your entire body, and it's making stops at every single station, the heart, the brain, the skin, you name it, and at every single stop, it's dropping off a little toxic package. Okay, so we've talked about the blood, but if we go even further upstream, there's another absolutely critical area, the very structure that literally holds our body together. We're talking about connective tissue. And this is where he really flips the script on how we think about aging. He takes all these common conditions and reframes them as just a breakdown of this one thing, connective tissue. I mean, think about this for a second. Glaucoma? He says that's not just an eye problem, it's osteoporosis of the eye. Wrinkles on your skin? That's osteoporosis of the skin. All of a sudden, you see it's all pointing back to the same fundamental mechanism. And the way he describes his connective tissue it's just incredible. It's not just some boring, passive scaffolding holding you up. No, he calls it the goo and the glue of the body. It's the jello mold that gives your organs their shape and holds them in place. And get this, he even calls it the womb for every single cell, the very matrix that nurtures them. This all leads him to coin this amazing and kind of funny term for what we see as aging. He calls it blobification. You know, that sagging, that loss of firmness and structure that we all notice over time? He says at its core, that's just blobification. It's the physical sign that our vital connective tissue is breaking down. Okay, so if the big root problems are dirty blood and deteriorating connective tissue, what do we do about it? What's the solution? Well, Fuchs proposes a unified strategy that goes right after these root causes. So you can forget the old idea of a specific pill for a specific ill. His solution is a multi-pronged approach that's all about restoring the body's foundation. It means you stop chasing symptoms and you start focusing on the real stuff. You focus on fixing the gut to clean up the blood at the source. You work on controlling your blood sugar to get rid of that toxic sludge. You use strategic supplements to literally rebuild that connective tissue. You improve oxygenation, and that can be as simple as deep breathing. And finally, you help your entire system detoxify itself. And this, right here, really captures that fundamental shift in thinking. The standard medical model often feels like you're just treating the rotten fruit on the tree. You're focused on the symptom. This systemic model, it's about ignoring the fruit for a second, getting down on your hands and knees, and focusing all of your energy on nourishing the roots of the tree. And that really is the crucial takeaway from all this. Once you start to understand these upstream mechanisms, your whole role can shift. You go from being a passive patient, just receiving treatments, to becoming an active, empowered participant in your own health story. So ultimately, this whole framework challenges us to ask a new question. What if that problem you're dealing with isn't the problem at all? What if it's just a signal, a message from your body inviting you to look deeper, to go upstream, and to finally find the true underlying cause?